despite its short lifespan here in the US, the Saturn had a ton of peripherals, like arcade sticks, third-party controllers, the Netlink adapter for the cartridge slot. There's like tons of them. But unsurprisingly, most of those were from Japan, which is the case for what we're going to talk about today.
The SBOM Joycard, or more commonly known as the Saturn Bomberman controller. This slick piece of Saturn kit was released alongside Saturn Bomberman in Japan, as well as the Saturn Bomberman themed multi-tap for the Sega Saturn. While marketed as being the definitive way of playing Saturn Bomberman, it's generally an all-purpose third-party controller for the Sega Saturn, but it goes above and beyond your standard controller in many cool ways. First off, Bomberman is molded on the controller. How cool is that? The overall shape of the controller is a little bit larger than a standard Sega Saturn Model 2 pad, but it still manages to be very comfortable to hold. And it's sturdy too, it doesn't feel like a cheap piece of plastic. The major difference in this controller are the buttons and turbo switches. The buttons have a little bit of a mushy feel, but they work just as well as a regular controller. Same goes for the D-pad. The triggers, in my opinion, are a vast improvement. It feels like real buttons rather than those cheap feeling ones on the other Saturn controllers. And of course, with it being a Hudson Soft controller, it's gotta have turbo switches. These ones give you 3 options. The first option is your regular controller function setting for everyday use. The second option has the buttons function like regular turbo buttons, hold it down to simulate rapid fire presses. The third option I thought was pretty cool. It'll simulate the turbo function without you having to press down the button, which is pretty awesome. Each button has its own individual switch too, so you can mix and match the turbo settings to play any game any way you want. Other than these cool things, the controller operates exactly as you would expect, but with a much higher quality than you would commonly see in third-party controllers. The SBOM Joycard is a pretty nifty controller. It's got everything you want from a good controller, plus the turbo switches, and it's got Bomberman on it. If you're looking to pick one up, it's gonna cost you a little bit more than a standard Saturn controller, at around $30 to $40, but it's still a totally awesome addition to anyone's Sega Saturn collection.